Welcome to the Coffee and Bites lecture about the SNSF ChronosHub pilot project. This talk is presented by Andrea Hacker from the University Library Bern Open Science team.
Hi everybody, thanks for the chance to say something about something very new. ChronosHub and SNSF joining forces to manage publications in a new way. I should say that some of this, Michael already pointed to that, some of the information you're going to get today is very, very fresh indeed, because this morning at 11 o'clock there was a big webinar by ChronosHub and the SNSF introducing this platform and this collaboration, and I have borrowed a few screenshots to show you really the latest information on what it is, why it is, and how it works. But before I get to that, let me give you a little bit of general information. ChronosHub is an interesting company. It's a relatively new company in Denmark. It's one of maybe half a dozen that have recognized a need in the market to supply a service that can effectively manage publication workflows around open access. In their own words, from their website, they say that they want to make the management of publishing fees, open access agreement, funder policy, compliance, and so on more effective. That is one part of their offering. And the other part that goes hand in hand with that is that they're trying to support authors in selecting suitable journals where they can publish, right, for manuscript submissions. So that's part of their package. But also by offering information on compliance with open access policies and obligations. Now, this pilot project that they thought up and that commenced last week, actually, I thought until this morning that it's supposed to last 6 months. That was the news that I got from the SNSF on the slides, and you're going to see one of them in a minute. From ChronosHub, I learned today that it is supposed to last until summer next year, so either 6 months or 1 year. But this is approximately the time frame that we're looking at. Important to remember is that while this project runs, researchers still have the chance to go the familiar route through MySNF and handle their APC-related workflows the way that they're used to and bypass this ChronosHub pilot project. But of course, you are encouraged. Any researcher funded by the SNSF will have received an email to that effect. Here come the stolen goods from this morning. This is stolen good number 1. This is the way that Chronos represented the problem, and it's a good slide, and it shows pretty much exactly the problem that we have, right? So down here, you see my mouse, I think. So down here is the author, and you will see all these communication pathways that have to happen and that have to be taken care of when folks try to publish their research results in open access. There are a variety of stakeholders in this process, and it gets very complicated. And what Chronos and, as I said, a handful of other providers now thought is, wouldn't it be great if there was a relay position somewhere in the middle of this mess through which all the communication could be channeled and more effectively handled, so that not everybody has to talk to everybody else, but someone in the middle takes care of that. So this is where they see themselves. Here, this slide shows you down here what Chronos is going to offer you as authors. The grayed out versions are not part of this pilot project, so they don't have to concern us today. And up here is what is going to be produced in terms of workflow for funders and the university. This is an interesting summary that they offered this morning. What is the scope of this pilot? What is it supposed to do? Important to know that all active SNSF grants are part of it. They're all covered. And here you see that little bit of surprising news, mid-2022. I thought it would have been at the end of this year, but who knows? Maybe they'll figure it out how long they want to let this run. We shall see. The next thing that is interesting is that the main publishers will be informed to send any APC invoices. So all the costs that are incurred for publishing in open access gold with APC, with the APC model, that they are sent directly to ChronosHub and no longer to the researchers. He didn't say specifically which publishers are the so-called main publishers. I think we have the usual suspects that we can think of, but they have working agreements with ChronosHub of, I think about 100 publishers. So it's quite a list, and the big ones are in there too. So we will see how that works. If for some reason funded researchers receive an invoice anyway from a publisher, they can forward that to this email address and it will be taken care of. As far as the journal finder is concerned, this is highly recommended to be used. So just to make sure that there is no glitch in terms of compliance and compatibility with the recommendations that come from the SNSF. One thing that is quite interesting, I thought, was that you see down here, please send any comments of what you like, dislike, miss, or wish to add to this email address. Basically, what this means is it's not a perfect tool. And I think that everyone expects there to be glitches and things that don't work. In an ideal world, this is what it's going to look like. So here is the author, and the author has only to log into the SNSF ChronosHub portal and can check compliance of journals and submit their manuscript through it. And that should be pretty much it in terms of admin. The rest would happen then from ChronosHub. They communicate with the publisher and they deal with the money issues and pay all the accounts that are outstanding. None of that should, in an ideal world, fall back onto the author's desk. So in short, this is another way of looking at what happens from the author part. In short, the author logs into this hub, goes to look for the journal, selects a journal that is suitable, right, and goes through the submission system that is integrated into ChronosHub. A lot of publishers have already done that. If it isn't, then there is a workaround that they offer as well. Let me backtrack. You submit the article. All the handling of content issues, basically the entire publication workflow, the manuscript curation, peer review, and the rest of it, that all goes as usual as ever through the publisher. That has nothing to do with ChronosHub. They just push metadata around so that everybody knows where that piece of research is at the moment. But peer review and the rest of it, that works very much as usual through the platforms of the publisher. Once the article is accepted, the author in an ideal world will not have to do anything, right? Because if it was submitted to ChronosHub, the metadata about this submission is already in the system. They get a ping back from the publisher. The publisher is going to send the invoice directly to ChronosHub and they take care of it. If the manuscript was submitted to the publisher directly and not through ChronosHub, ChronosHub should still get the invoice and the author doesn't need to do anything. And if, as I said before, for some reason an invoice does land on the desk of an author, it can be forwarded by email. So sounds good so far. Let's take a little look at what the interface looks like. Again, this is very fresh from about 3 hours ago. This is what you see when you log in through the SNSF ChronosHub portal. This is your welcome page. The top, it's a very easy to use page. This is the top part of it. And when you scroll down, you see this, right? You have a very simple search function. And here you can use the journal finder to find an appropriate journal, or you can submit a manuscript if you're ready to do so, or you can upload an invoice if you have one, or you can look at what happened to articles you already published. And underneath that, you have a little menu where you can expand on that and look at articles that are in a variety of stages. So in terms of interface, that looks all quite straightforward. what I'm going to do real quick now is take a look at what this function looks like, the journal finder, because there's a lot of interesting information to be gleaned from that. This is what happens when you get some search results once you look for a journal. This is the result, and that's quite interesting because in this result, you will see if a journal is compliant. It will also tell you what kind of open access journal this is. If it is an gold open access journal, it will cover the open access publication fees. If it isn't, we're going to look at what happens if it isn't on the next slide. But before I go there, I just want to show you what they give you in terms of search options. Here on the left-hand side, you can search by subject areas. You can search by journal list, right? So you have Scopus, the Web of Science, and the DOAJ. And that's probably where they get all of that information, most of that information from anyway. And here you have the publishers, right? So you see here the usual suspect, Elsevier, Wiley, Springer, Taylor, Francis, and so on. So what happens if you have found a journal that you like, that isn't open access pure, then it will tell you, okay, it's compliant. You can publish in open access in this particular journal, for example, but it is a hybrid journal, right? And the SNSF does not cover the fees, meaning you have to go and look for the money elsewhere. If you click this little button, why is this compliant? You will get this interface, this little bit of information box that is going to tell you it is a subscription, right? So that's a fail, or it is a green open access. It can both pass if it's compliant, or not pass if the embargo is too long, right? Or it's a hybrid open access journal, which means it's okay. It's just we're not going to pay for it. So this is very shortly put together the way that it works, the way that it looks, and the framework of the collaboration. Here are a few more thoughts. As I said, the idea is very much to ease the administrative burden on the researchers. Here in the Open Science team, we get so many inquiries from people who are just trying to figure out open access requirements on the one hand from the funders, open access policies on the other side by publishers or journals. And this is very much the idea, the business idea behind this. Look, we can provide a service that is going to make your life easier. You don't have to find the money. You don't have to deal with invoices and so on. We're going to tell you very quickly what you can and cannot do, and we'll take care of all the management of the money flows behind the scenes. In terms of time frame and the rollout, as I said, this thing went live last week. So it's very new. The communication, as I mentioned as well, emails have already been sent to the researchers that are funded by the SNSF. They also have a blog entry, a web page that I have linked here. And as I said, the webinars. The webinar from this morning was quite lengthy and detailed. It was over an hour long. They recorded it, and it will show up on this webpage that I have linked here. But of course, I don't have that link yet. They will have to process it first. So please go back to that webpage and have a look at it for more in-depth information. All of this I basically already said. I want to close with a few concerns before we start maybe discussing this project. Concern number one I have is the time frame. And it's interesting because this question came up right after that presentation this morning as well. So let's imagine this trial run goes until, I don't know, mid-2022. What if it doesn't work out and the SNSF and ChronosHub will not continue their collaboration? What happens to all the journals, articles that are in the system? The ChronosHub representative insisted that the data will go back to the SNSF that is in the system at that time, should it come to a conclusion of the collaboration. But how exactly that would work and what that then means for the processes that are underway, they couldn't say. The second concern that I have is that this has very limited functionality so far, which is fine for a pilot project. And we know the SNSF is primarily looking like most open access funders, primarily looking after journal articles. So that is one concern, that it is only pertaining to journal articles, and there is no support for open access green. So self-archiving is not even considered in this workflow, not yet. Now, ChronosHub says that they have the functionality and the capability of delivering on reporting and on making accessible the metadata and the appropriate manuscripts for repositories to pick them up through an interface. But this is not part of this SNSF collaboration. So how that is going to factor in, I just don't know. And I think open access green is not something that we just simply want to ignore. We will have to see if it picks up and how it picks up and how, how it proves proof of concept, if what it's going to look like in 6 to 12 months. I'm going to stop now and hope that we will have a bit of a discussion.